Okay, here we are. Welcome everyone to our first podcast for the Ravens Voice, the pilot episode. That pun is intended, considering the content here for the show. I'm Tierson, and with me is Zealous.
Hey everyone.
All right, so let's see. Today was the big day, the big exhibition. We
Yep.
intended to do this along with that, so that we would have a big topic to talk about. We had thought that there would be a lot of people attending, and by the looks of it, we were right. A lot of people did show up for the exhibition today, at least on the PS3 US side. I can't really speak for any others, but we had a lot of people on. It was a lot of fun today.
Definitely. You had a real vocal community. I think it was pretty exciting. I noticed some posts on Facebook that the 360 side for NA was really full as well. So that's great. I know Cheng was saying he could scarcely keep a room open before things would immediately fill up. So I know he was really crowded as well. But it's great to see. It's like all you got to do is throw the fishing line out there, and there comes the community.
I think that's nice. I agree. I think for a lot of people, they're thinking, much like I was, that this is probably going to be the last event for AC5, and we got Verdict Day coming up here in a couple months. So, I think they wanted one last time to really just play with a lot of people, play with their builds, and kind of go full circle with the game, which is what you find people tend to want to do with Armored Core when a new expansion or a new part of the game comes out. So that was really cool. They had a lot of different builds. In fact, I think I was one of the few people that really just used 2 or 3 builds most of the day. People were really switching up, and actually there was a couple that stayed with most of the builds. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But
So let's see. First, the exhibition is going to be the main topic of the day, but first we wanted to talk a little bit about the show and a lot of questions about this in general. How this project came to be. A lot of people, we announced that you really couldn't go anywhere in the AC community online without hearing about this. We posted it pretty much everywhere. Some people were a little unsure as to why something like this was even created. A lot of people, we've already gotten a lot of subscribers to it. It's fairly simple to do something like this nowadays. Back when I was in the AC community back in the PS2 days, this took a bit more technology. Just software really wasn't there to do something like this on a regular basis. But coming back last year, coming back to the AC community and back to Armored Core, just in general, I was pretty shocked to find that just the state of the community overall, but also that things like this weren't going. I mean, this is fairly easy stuff to do. I think the community in general is going to enjoy something like this. Just a platform to talk about topics. And everybody who's known me over the years knows that I'm definitely outspoken. I have an opinion, and you know probably more than anyone. I have an opinion, and I'll share it. So, I thought this would be a good platform, and people tend to generally enjoy at least hearing what I have to say, whether they agree with it or not. So,
so also too, since we're kind of making some of the allusions and skating around the topics here, you want to just talk a little bit about what brought us back? What brought us to the AC community in the first place, and just giving a little bit of an intro here.
Well, as I said, in most of the postings that I did, Raven's Voice, is intentionally to be an independent project. There's nobody out there that will tell us what we can and can't say. There's no one that will tell us, that we can't touch a certain topic, or not maybe say exactly how we feel about something. That was important. This project is affiliated with a website that is coming out called Armored Core Legacy. The affiliation to that is because Zealous and I are content developers for that site. The forums are out. ArmoredCoreLegacy.com. Go ahead and sign up. But the website's not quite done yet. That should be done in a few weeks. But we were approached by somebody to help build this website, and it was a really good idea. Basically his goal is to bring something together, bring the community together through this project to try to bring things back to the way they were back about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
So yeah, so we have this project Armored Core Legacy, which is like I said, the person had come to us with the idea of trying to rebuild the community in general. I mean, he's heard a lot about what things were like back in the day, and of course, Zealous and I we come from that time. We come from what a lot of people refer to as the basically the best time to be an Armored Core fan.
Oh, for sure.
Back in the PS2 days, from Silent Line to Last Raven, AC3 as well. But basically, things within the community, LAN parties, tournaments, and such really started with Silent Line for the most part. That's when you had a few of them going. And of course, myself, if for those of you who don't know, um, I hosted ACMM 1, 2, 3, and 4. I had a forums up at the time, and
A3C. Long
yeah,
live
yeah,
legacy.
that's right, that's right. Um, no, so I was big in the community then. That was something that I cared about. ACMM events were huge, and the first one was I was not prepared for everything that was going to be. But so yeah, that's where I come in with that was that the AC community up until I had left, which I just I needed to move on for a bit. I had other things I had going on in my life. I just didn't have time to continue to manage the forums and continue to put on events. But at the same time, I'd seen that things were going to drastically change in the future for Armored Core, which of course they did. But we can go into that another time, and actually we'll go into that a bit next week. But anyways, that's a lot for me. So I'm going to let Zealous talk here a little bit, and he can tell you a bit about his past and why he's interested in doing this podcast and to put all the effort into the community like he used to.
Sure, most definitely. My name is Zealous. Those of you might remember from back in the day, we had a group called Quad Squad back on Old Armored Core Online. As the name denotes, I am a quad fanatic. I have played quad since I began playing Armored Core. I formally started AC in 2000 with AC2, and I was introduced to AC through the Pizza Hut demo disc back in '97. Uh, however, that was just through a random visit to a friend's house, and everyone was just tooling around in the garage, and I really didn't get a clean idea of what the series was about. But later on, really got into it, dug into it, and it really just exploded for me once I found out that there was a community for this. I first got in touch with the Midwest community for Armored Core, as Tierson was alluding to with the tournaments. My first formal event was Armored Core Midwest Mayhem 2, and that tournament was for Silent Line. And it was great. Just amazing to really plug in with one of your favorite games and to see there's a huge community for this and there's people playing it, and playing it competitively at that. And things just kind of blossomed and constantly grew from there. And both of us have a genuine passion for this and for aiding the community. AC has long been about how the community will push efforts instead of waiting for, let's say, an official response or official programs and whatnot to come out. It simply doesn't happen. We get Armored Core localized here in the United States, but we do not have From Software obviously sitting on our shores. So most of the initiatives that come, it falls in the lap of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Definitely.
definitely we have to take things and build them from there. And that's the interesting thing about this. There's the spirit for it, even in the times when a lot of the veterans left. Armored Core 4 was a time saw a lot of players leave, and then some join. And then 5, we've seen a bit of a resurgence and whatnot. But today was definitely a confirmation, again, that there's plenty of people that enjoy this game, tons of people who are still getting into the series, and so long as those things are there, that gives us some great foundations and some wonderful things to introduce.
Right. Well, talking a little bit about that, Zealous and I were in the same team in Armored Core 5, and that one of the topics that I always talked about while we were waiting endlessly for conquest matches.
Oh goodness.
I would talk about the fact that the community's pretty good size. A lot of people talk about how it's smaller now, and it's definitely not connected. It's definitely not as close as it used to be. But there's a lot of people that are playing this game. Some people get disillusioned because because you do have to wait for conquest matches, or maybe you just don't see somebody playing for a couple days, or whatever. There are a lot of people. Even to this day, I still find so many people I've never met, never heard of, that I don't see in forums.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah, they're playing Armored Core 5. There's a lot of people that are playing this game. And, in talking about this issue, it's certainly not a lack of a player base. They're just not connected. I mean, it's kind of funny that the game is now online, but several years ago, back in the PS2 days, things were so much more connected. People knew how to get a hold of each other. The community in large knew who each other was, and if they didn't, they were actually invited into the community, and they were welcomed. Actually, something that doesn't happen so much anymore. Um,
Definitely.
but yeah, kind of rambling there. But there's a lot of people out there yet, and a lot of the reason why I want to do this is I definitely think there is a lot of people that could use some help to
Yeah.
find each other, find the AC community, and I think that would keep a lot of people playing. Because I know, at least in the past, it's what kept a lot of people together in Armored Core was the community.
It
Um,
is.
a lot of people just enjoyed each other's company. They enjoyed the communities in general, whichever forums. Um, and it's just not there anymore. And I
Yeah.
think, a game like this that you spend so much time working on your AC to actually want to, verse other people and talk strategy and how they build their ACs and such. This is something that needs brought back, not just in niche groups, but it's something that it's a piece of this game that's just not there right now, and that also is what's fueled me a bit to put effort back into trying to bring everyone back together.
And it's interesting you highlighted the idea of niche groups. In the past, you're right. I mean, the communities were tight knit. The ones that knew about the events and the tournaments, or you could get together. I mean, over on the West Coast, you had MOC, Masters of California events, and then you had your East Coast tournaments, and then you had your Midwest events and whatnot. But still, you had this large pocket of players that just didn't know about the community yet, or just who weren't connected, or who were still kind of disjointed. So uh, it's interesting. There was always this underground feel that kind of followed it. It almost felt like a huge league. Um,
Hmm.
I guess the only thing we wish is that all of us could have got more connected back then. I remember the days when we used to argue in ACO about the Midwest versus California. We tried to say, "Oh, you guys come to Chicago." I said, "Oh, you guys come over here." We got plasma TVs and whatnot. But the irony in that is now we are connected. We actually have online with Armored Core, and that's something that was just a figment, just a dream, so far off way back when. We played through third-party tunneling software like Xlink Kai for Armored Core Nexus and Ninebreaker and Last Raven. And here we are today. I mean, the service is right there. It's online. You want to jump on. There's free battle, conquest, and whatnot for 5. You had your free battles and everything else for 4. And yet, people are still a little separate and still don't have as much of an idea about the community. It's interesting.
Yeah, there's several reasons for that. Part of it is the split between the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and the community being split by that. A lot of it is just what we got was a rushed and a very different and not nearly as good of quality game in Armored Core 4. It brought in different kind of players. It made a lot of people leave. And even still, there are people that even then don't like Armored Core 5.
Yeah.
Which really, in my opinion, is a lot like the previous games were, especially the original Armored Core games, in most respects. But
Yeah.
still has a different enough feel where you have people who played these games for 13, 14 years just saying, I've had enough. Um, but to each their own. If somebody doesn't like a game, they shouldn't play it.
Simple as
But
that.
right. So I think this is actually a pretty good segue into today's events.
Yeah.
Talking about this conversation about now that we can finally have online play and such. It definitely was all over the place today. Overall, what are your feelings of today's event, the exhibition?
My first thought as I was coming in, and I was a little worried about joining the rooms, because I knew there was going to be team rooms, battle royale, 1v1s, and whatnot. And I kept seeing them pop up, but then someone immediately closed, and I kind of had a little sense of, oh, is this a little chaotic? I mean, what exactly is going on? I mean, but what was happening was the rooms were filling up so quick.
Hmm.
You'd have one that would start, and then it would be, oh, this is 3 out of 10, and it would just immediately shoot to 10, and then it would be off the list again. And I felt Cheng was probably a little overwhelmed on that end. Maybe that's because some people didn't expect that kind of response, and so it was just mainly Cheng staffing things at first. Um, but once things really got rolling and people kind of knew where to be directed, it really, really took off. I think fans love the idea of being able to have some matches recorded for YouTube. That was part of the advertisement. And once we got started, we mentioned that we were going to be sharing some thoughts on podcast today too, for certain players. So
Mhm.
it was a little, just overall, just a little tough to get in on matches at first. But once we kicked off, started our own rooms, it was great. I got in on Cheng's room earlier today it was about 3 p.m. Central, and we did Battle Royale, I believe. We were kind of all over the place, and we had a little bit of team too. But it was just great. One sentiment I got was players just commenting on how excited they were to see rooms filling up like that again.
Mm.
Apparently, I think a lot of people get into conquest or they get into doing territories and they kind of get into this semi-grind and they don't always enjoy free battle or they want to do ranked, hold their position or whatnot. But here you had it. You had teams filling all the way up to the brim, even to the operator slot too. And I think people really, really like that. I know Fungus Bread, as one of the players of note today, really commented on that. He saw a bunch of his friends, and what was great was you had people within the same team running into each other. You had people from opposing teams and all kinds of people, who just game together throughout five, getting a chance to just reconnect and just enjoy it today. So,
Well, okay, so let me say a couple things. Um, you and I spent most of the day together doing exhibition. We knew
yep.
we were talking about it tonight,
Hmm.
so we stayed together for the most part to see what the experience was like.
Yep.
I was told by enough people that there were so many rooms and it was just impossible to get into one from time to time, and that they were filling up so quickly. I have no reason not to believe that. I didn't see it. Whenever checking for rooms, I just didn't see a lot of them.
Okay.
Um, but even then, I had a hard time even finding yours. I don't know what the hell's. I tend to have that problem.
I think part of that just comes down to server issues.
Yeah.
A lot of the rooms don't update frequently enough, so something that might be there you don't see it immediately, or it may be full and you might see it and then you can't get in anyway. That might just be something server side.
Checking around today, I have not seen any complaints about today's event. I think overall it was a hit. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a train wreck. Talking to Chang about it not too long ago. I was asking him specifically what he had planned. How things were going to be organized, and he really didn't have an answer. So we were talking about this not too long ago. I thought it was going to be really just a mess, but no, it ended up going really well.
Yeah.
From everything I can tell, everybody had a lot of fun. So that's what matters. And we were on 2 occasions today. We played for almost 4 hours earlier today,
Yeah.
and we were on for I think an hour and a half or so. No, about an hour. About an hour. We had 4 or 5 more in. And so we were with most of the same people most of the day, which was really cool. And people would leave, new people would come in. It was a lot of fun. Um, you know, my experiences in the past sometimes playing Armored Core 5 with other people have not been the best. Sometimes they've been great. Sometimes they've been better than they were today, which today was pretty good. So a little bit leery about that. You would a lot of griefers, so to speak. Not the case today, though. A lot of cool people. Just from hearing from their voice, a lot of different ages, a lot of different mentalities. That's definitely one of my favorite things about Armored Core, just since AC1, is that you get people of all kinds playing this game.
Oh yeah.
And, they were definitely out today. All different kinds of people. That's probably one of my favorite things. Okay, so so like I was saying, we spent most of the day playing with a lot of the same people. I know Zealous, you took note of a lot of those people.
Yeah.
And we did tell them that we were, in case they didn't know, we were recording the podcast tonight, and that we would be talking about today's experience. So I'm gonna throw that to you, Zealous, and if you want to talk about the people that we were playing today and just your experience with them overall.
Yeah, sure. Um, the coolest part today too, we still ran into some people who were picking up AC5 for the first time. That's great to see. Even people who hadn't played, from back in the day. But yeah, as far as players to note today, I just had a couple I want to mention. A shout out to Fungus Bread, as we discussed earlier. W2 427, War Angel, Wave Samurai, The Relief, and Schweppes 327. One of the greatest things today about all the different players that joined was everybody who was there in the rooms, and especially the ones that stayed. Everyone was super accommodating, and anybody new who would come in the rooms, or if they hadn't played AC5 before, or if they were just coming in, they were welcomed. I mean, I really felt this event didn't fall just on us or the people hosting or just on Chang. It was as much led by the community as the hosts themselves did. And
Mm.
that always really helps keep the pace of things going. You can kind of tire yourself out, talking for an hour on end and trying to promote things, but it's when you have the players actually saying, hey, coming in, or hey, change this team, hey, this is how this works, or just
Mm.
giving someone an instruction like, for example, someone just recently as we'd stopped, they weren't too sure how to use operator, or they just didn't know a whole lot about the controls, but everybody was cool about that, and they just walked through and just guided it. So
Yeah, and generally, I agree. I think the community is really nice to each other. Um, every once in a while, I've noticed that you have some real assholes in there, but not today for the most part. Everybody's pretty cool, pretty nice. Which is really good because there's always a bit of apprehension when you're playing online, especially the first time, because you want to do really well. You don't want to seem like a noob because there
yep,
are
yep.
there are those people that will they'll key in on that. And they'll make fun of it. I know that because sometimes I'm that guy too, but in fun. I'll be playful about it.
But yeah, touching back on some of the players in Note today,
Yeah, let's get back to
and the
that.
ones that and the ones that we were around a lot. I know I mentioned Fungus Bread earlier, so I'm kind of going to start there.
Fungus Bread, was that his full name? Fungus Bread. I was just calling him Fungus the whole time.
Yeah, Fungus for short. Fungus Bread. He didn't have any of his ACs named. He had
Yeah, I
a
noticed that. I noticed a lot of people didn't name their ACs. That's new as far as I'm concerned. I've always named my ACs. I've always noticed that people do, for the most part. Even giving them obscure names, like
yeah.
maybe the different version of that AC and such. But yeah, I noticed that quite a bit. That there were plenty of players who just didn't name their builds.
And the funniest part for some of us, that's a heresy. You're like, how can you make a design and not name it? There's so much soul that goes into that, and yet you're like, but hey, it's to each their own. By all means, and
Right. I won't
uh,
even present my AC unless it has a name.
and others they won't present unless they have an emblem. I mean, you remember who was it, Jester, back at the Midwest events, who always used to focus on his aesthetic or his emblem or like his paint scheme and whatnot. It's everybody's got their own territory about that.
Right.
But yeah, with that as well, one thing I started to really consider was how weapons were being used today and the different types of builds and designs we saw within that. Um, a cool part about having consistent players in a lobby that are willing to hang with you through all like the ebbs and flows of the day or where the game's going is you get to see some nice variation in builds over time. And as a result, people get more relaxed. They'll start to bring out their staple designs and whatnot, or heck, they might just use them earlier and just go full bore. But you get a good variety, and I think this really helps give an idea of what's happening with the meta. What are some of the things people are enjoying? What weapons are still popular from launch or not popular anymore, and what's being used. And that was definitely shown today. I know I took down note of a number of the staple designs I saw and some of the names, and as we speak here, I'll get into those. But I'd like to ask you though, Tierson,
Yeah.
from when you picked up AC5 to your experiences today, how did you feel just about the meta, about just builds, weapons being used and whatnot? I mean, was it drastically different from what you remembered at the start of five, or pretty similar?
I got into AC5 about 3 months late,
Yeah.
so by that point, a lot of the community had figured out. what they're playing, what they like to play, their niche. My niche hasn't changed much. My main AC, my staple, I guess, which is the commonly used term, still a middleweight biped, and I think that's going to remain that way. But I always delve into other things. I always like to try all the other builds. The biggest difference, and it's my understanding that these also sucked in AC4 and 4 answer the games that I didn't really play too much. Is that AC5 has definitely been the game of the tank, and we saw that today. And tanks, they've had their day with Armored Core 5, and I'm glad to see it. They're a lot of fun to use. Not so much fun to take on unless you have the right weapons, but
Yeah.
definitely a lot of tanks today, myself included. I pulled out my tank a few times. Did okay a couple times. Most of the time, not so much, but that's all right. But yeah, besides that, you see a lot of what you used to see. You see people
Yeah.
using missiles. You see people using shotguns. You see people using rifles. The only thing that's really missing from previous days is that you don't see a lot of machine guns anymore.
Just about to note that. Yep.
Gatling guns in this case, same difference. They don't have their place, and at least from a year ago, I mean, the big weapon uh, coming into Armored Core 5 was, I forget the name of it, but it was a fairly powerful machine
I
gun.
want to say the one with high ammo count, Zaputois, perhaps.
No, I didn't say. I think it only had like 400 ammo, but you could tweak that thing to have about 1,000 damage per shot.
USG 23.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing was pretty popular, and you just don't see that a lot anymore. The community in general seemed to find a way to make it obsolete.
Yeah.
There were definitely weaknesses to that weapon. And I think that was something maybe that had more to do with the fact that on paper it looked really good, and it seemed like something to use early
Yeah.
on.
For
As you
sure.
as you learned and as you went on, it just didn't seem like all that good of a weapon.
It,
But a lot of it's kind of the same difference, which I really like. You have you have plenty of bipeds, quads. Like I said, tanks are finally viable, which is good because we lost a set of legs with the Armored Core 5,
yeah.
no hunters anymore. So, um, reverse joints were out there even a little bit too. You had the heavies, the lightweights, the mids. So, it's still good variety. And like I said again, notable that the tanks have a presence and have lasted. So,
Yeah.
that's always fun. That there's a good variety.
Yeah, there's others, that I know have had some different points of contention about tanks, or would say, oh, they're struggling or they have a hard time. But I'm kind of in the same line of thought there. I think genuinely believe they've gotten stronger. Um, sure, you have movement issues naturally, but you can't scale buildings and whatnot as fast. But it's impressive what they can do with cannons.
Well, tanks should have movement
Of
issues. They're
course,
tanks. They're,
it's
they're tanks.
it's a natural thing. I'd actually like to hear some of the community thought on that. Whether it's a general sentiment people feel tanks have gotten gimped or not. I get the feeling it's not. I know I've heard a few voices
I don't
speak
know how.
contrary to that, but it'd be something interesting. If you guys are hearing that, send an email to us. Just what your thoughts on tanks are about how they fit into AC5's meta compared to Silent Line and some of the past titles. That'd be great.
Hmm.
Um, and another one of your points we mentioned here too, Tierson, you were kind of playing at. We threw out the idea of cheese builds today. At least Fungus and some of the others did, and machine
So,
guns, as you were mentioning. We didn't hear a whole lot about USGs, Aputois, etc. Early AC5, especially some of the early JP play, dual Gatlings and whatnot, is just very hot. It came over to the US side very quick. You had a lot of uh, heavy reverse joint builds with dual Gats. It easily became a staple for a lot of people to use, a strong rushdown build. But it's, with most things, people design around it eventually. They learn to counter it. Other things come up. Things that are stronger in the meta. The rise of PMGs. The pulses up close, including pulse cannons, absolutely lethal. As we know, a lot of designs struggle with high TE. You have that on tanks or perhaps really balanced quad frame and whatnot, but a lot of ACs really don't have defenses super high in that zone.
right. Tanks. Well, tanks. I don't think can't. They can't even help but to have high TP.
Right.
So, and actually bringing that up is kind of funny because I think I was one of the few people today that was using a laser rifle. I don't think a lot of people were using those. I was kind of proud of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Hey, you got. I saw a
Represent the laser rifle.
for sure, for sure. There was we did have an Alni user, and I did see a couple of Kurosawas. Always high-powered Kurosawas though, 4-shot, never the
I
40.
don't get it. I don't.
You don't get it.
Someone post on the forums or email me. Why do you like that gun? 4 shots. I mean, as fast as Armored Core is now, yeah, we don't fly around like we used to. But as fast paced as the game is, how I don't know. It's just not part of my gameplay
Heck,
using that gun.
well,
So
well, heck, I might even end up emailing you about that. I had a quad design based around a few of them, but no, you're right. There's just not as much laser play. Could be partially because you have players that don't like to, Mega Man Buster their weapons. They want to have weapons immediately snap available that they can take use of in a situation without having to time things out. But it's really a preference.
sorry about that, guys. I had an email pop up there.
Oh, it's okay.
Um,
It's all good.
could you hear that? Could you hear that? Let me turn that off.
Nah, it's like minuscule. It's fine.
All right. And by the way, you completely got past the fact that you were talking about a guy named Fungus talking about cheese builds, and I didn't get a chance to comment on that earlier, so I'm doing so now. Um, you know, I didn't see a lot of cheese builds today. I guess I've never quite looked at it like that. Putting together the ACMM events, that was always one of the biggest topics was uh, overpowered weapons and in some cases, core pieces, legs and such. We've talked about this in the past. I think Armored Core 5 is the most balanced Armored Core game to date. So and nobody really groans. It's like, oh god, that guy's using that, or of course he won. He's using this and that. You don't hear that anymore, which is really cool. The weapon banning and such for tournaments of the past were always the most controversial and most heated debates for the community in general. I mean, you would have people who would not speak to each other anymore debating those issues. So it's kind of cool. I definitely tip my hat to From for building a really balanced game. And actually, I didn't have a chance to mention this. Um, you know, Hats off a little bit to Namco for helping put this event together. I mean, this is something that Age Tech sure as hell never did. We couldn't even get Age Tech to acknowledge the events that we would hold, let alone try to put one together. So a little bit of a tip to my hat to Namco for helping with this, getting a hold of some of the people in the community, and putting this event together today.
Definitely, it's always really appreciated. I mean, again, as we were talking about earlier, on the U.S. side, we don't always have the official push, to help boost us or to help get the advertisement out there. And just seeing that, I mean, just having banners alone designed and have that up in forums, that's huge.
I'm a little glad the event has come and gone, so that I will no longer be getting spammed about this event.
You had a lot of questions coming in.
What's that?
You had a lot of questions coming in about it.
No, I would everywhere I turned, I was seeing things about this event,
Like
advertisement. So I'm a little glad that's finally done. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, still a little mad at Namco. We'll continue to be until we go into verdict day because we haven't gotten all of the patches for this game. So not too thrilled about that. There's a couple that Japan got that we never did. So don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here praising Namco. I'm saying good job today. But at this point, with less than I think about a little over 2 months until the next game, it's a little late to come out with the rest of the patches. So that kind of sucks that we never got those.
I kind of want to bring that to another one of the players we ran into today. Mentioned that very note. I believe it was Wave Samurai. He's running the staple of Final Frontier. He had a note about patches and translating parts over from JP side. And I asked another user about this too, from Enders, and he's going to be sending me an email. Unfortunately, I can't respond to that at the moment because I don't have any content for it. But there is a difference on JP side when you design, as far as even for FCS usage. For example, glance is really big over on the NA side. but those little minuscule changes you'll have over JP side, whether it's energy drain or another like your lock efficiency or what have you, it's easy to throw your main designs off. I mean, I think back to the PLS RAW 02 FCS from Silent Line. I could not imagine having that like patched and changed. Like I just came over to switch versions, and then oh holy cow, like my whole design is thrown off, or you're just tracking differently. So there is a bit of discontinuity there. We had a similar issue in 4 and 4A, slower updating, slower patches.
Oh, don't even get me started on how long it took us to get the
patches. Yeah, that's another story in and of itself. But like you're saying, this is a really heated issue. It's something players get passionate about, and
I'm about to get passionate about it. You might want to choose.
I should veer away from it.
Started.
But I think it's a fair issue too, and a completely logical one. Players want to have the same updates and to be on par with the same updates. A market shift that we have here with AC5 is having the JP side, JP players on their own servers, and you have the EU and North American players on theirs. And naturally, I understand a little bit of a time lag in translating patches, but when it gets drastic, it can hurt gameplay. One thing players, especially AC players, want are updated stats on all the parts. Absolutely.
Well, and when we don't get new parts, even when they come out with a DLC, which was okay, not worth the $10 we paid for, but it was alright. But we don't get a single new part, and I'm sorry, repainted parts, that doesn't count. So we don't get new parts. So when you modify the current weapons, balance them out a bit, it's kind of like getting new parts. So it's kind of it kind of works in that regard.
Yeah.
So when we know that there's updated stats out there that we're never going to see, that's a little annoying, and there's no good reason for it. Changing stats, modifying, nerfing, or making a part or a weapon better. I mean, that brings people back too. That makes people want to play again. That makes them, let's check out what they did. And the fact that they didn't do that, the fact that there are patches out there we didn't get, that's just simply put, it's just wrong and it's bullshit. So like I said, I'll pat Namco on the back for helping with today's events, but at the same time, I'm still kind of flipping them off a little bit. So yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, well, one thing this kind of brings me back to as well. If we had all the updated patches, for the content and the parts, is questioning how our builds would function now. What will be changed with our staples? I mean, I'd argue, well, it'd be pretty obvious if you have a massive overhaul. Well, you're going to change some things about your design. But it brings me back to a design I saw earlier from Schweppes327 on his Lilim staple. He had a good balanced loadout. I mean, he had a TE source, from a PMG. Pile BR, balanced weaponry, because we know that's a tricky thing to do in 5 anyway. You have your rock paper scissors defense.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Altered stats though, depending on where those would go. I mean, I kind of have to question because I don't know as much at this point. I mean, if things upped, your CE damage more, there was more of a push towards K, would you be more attuned towards using a sniper despite weight? And there's so many factors that go into that, but
exactly.
I always question where that would shift the meta because it's kind of inevitable. I think back to 4 Answer when Primal Armor was changed too.
That's kind of what ticks me off about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that we have an incomplete version of Armored Core 5.
Yeah.
We do not have the version of Armored Core 5 that From Software put out, the creators of the game. And that's what upsets me about it. It's we don't have everything. Yeah. And even though we have all the parts, we don't have everything the way that they intended them to finally be. So that's part of what irks me about it so much.
I mean, certainly. Another thing that kind of makes me wonder about is I wonder how many changes we'd have to speed as far as raw boost or whatnot. This is something that hasn't been really touched on a whole lot for 5. It was an FA. They were constantly tweaking speed. Sometimes people complained it was too quick on some of the patches. And other times, things were too slow and they were increasing it. But 5 seems to have reached or just maintained the kind of homeostasis and kind of the medium about this. This is something that really hasn't been touched a whole lot in the patch contents. But still, we just failed to get a full picture of that until we'd have an update.
Oh, and we're not going to get an update. I mean, we're 2 months away from verdict day,
It's
so
almost here. So
yeah, it's like I was saying before. We're just going to have to deal with that,
we will.
And again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but that's great that Namco is a bit more involved in things, but at the same time, I'm seeing a little bit of H-Tech syndrome here. Not well, at least in the fact that H-Tech didn't even have to put out patches, but just a lack of involvement and what feels like a lack of caring of their player base. I mean, anybody who was around back in hell, even from AC1 up until the end of the PS2 era. I mean, H-Tech didn't exist without Armored Core. They were doing like some puzzle thing or maybe a couple other smaller games, but H-Tech did not keep their doors open if it wasn't for the Armored Core base. And they didn't care, which is okay. We kind of accepted it. They were localizing Armored Core for the money, and that's fine. We wanted them to localize it because we wanted to play it, and the games didn't really go that much further.
Right.
Who was it for AC4 and 4 Answer? That was Ubisoft.
Yes. Well, it was a split. It was actually we had Sega for AC4 and then Ubisoft for Answer.
Well, and I believe they were pretty silent for the most part. I didn't play these games. I played Armored
Right.
Core 4 a little bit, but after about 3 hours, that was enough of that. Um, I actually had to apologize to somebody because I gave them Armored Core 4 for Christmas, and it's a true story. And it was so bad I had to apologize to him. I figured it was going to be great. I'd always play. I didn't have a PS3 yet, so I gave it to my nephews. They had a 360, and it just came out, so I bought them Armored Core 4. And my brother who used to play the original ACs, he's like, "Wow, man, I don't. This game sucks. They won't touch it." And it wasn't until years later when I'd actually played 4 myself, and I can't remember, we were at some family thing, and I was just like, "Man, I'm sorry, I gave that to you for Christmas. I'm sorry. I don't blame you for not getting me a present after that." That's
So,
poor.
but hey, all in all, we'll see where things go. We know going into Verdict Day, we will have Namco Bandai backing things again. In a way, it's kind of nice to keep your foundations, or to keep the same publisher.
Definitely.
We've never had a publisher run as long as H-Tech. Obviously, there aren't as many next-gen Armored Cores as there were old-school Armored Cores, but
Right.
the hope is that the community continue to push this, that we can keep just a similar staff and crew behind things and just move on from there. And I think our exhibition today was a great step in the right direction, just
I
to
agree.
help solidify that community.
It's and I think that was part of the intention, which is fine. It wasn't just, hey, come on and have fun playing. That obviously was a big goal, and I think it was
Yeah,
very successful in that. But at the same time, it was to show people, hey, by Verdict Day, look at all these people that are playing, and
definitely.
that's a good one though. That's fine. They're doing it for dollars, and we're doing it because we want to have a good AC community. So it all works out good for everyone. But yeah, I think if you played today, you're definitely. I'm hoping, and from what I saw today, everybody was coming out with good experiences. Everybody was enjoying themselves. So yeah, I think today was a big success in that regard.
Most definitely. And on those notes, I believe we can wrap up and prepare for our notes on next week. What's going to be our topic, Tierson?
Oh boy, next week. It's kind of we've been touching on this a little bit throughout the night. Today we wanted to give plenty of time for introductions and such. Also, this was, Zealous and I, we've never really done this before as far as weekly podcasts or weekly show like this. So we had a lot of jitters we had to get out, which you will probably, if you're paying enough attention, you will notice even from the beginning of the show to now, it's even gotten a lot better. But, we have a little bit of a lag time here until Verdict Day, so we have
Yeah.
an opportunity to touch on some subjects, and really just wanted to come out of the gate with probably, I think, the most controversial subject for the Armored Core community since Humans Plus. Um, and that is basically, we're going to do an overview and a retrospect of the last 5 to 6 years. We're going to take a look at, basically in our prime and in Armored Core, the community's prime from the PS2 days, from Last Raven. We're gonna start there where the PS2 ended, and we're going to go up until now. We're going to take a long, hard look and analyze where things have gone for Armored Core with AC4, 4 Answer, and 5, and the effects that it's had on the community, the player base specifically, the likes and dislikes. We're gonna grind into all this, and we're gonna take a good hard look at where it's gone or where it's been and where it's gonna go with Verdict Day into PlayStation 4.
Also, we're going to have a special guest of note, Cleric. Some of you may remember him from the old ACO staff, and he's also greatly aided efforts on Mechaverse and other spots. Cleric will be joining us to speak about things. He also has a Armored Core retrospective running on YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, please do.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
definitely a link I'm going to put in the description for this, so be sure to check that out. It's still an ongoing series. He's going to have Project Phantasma up next, and he's going to roll into Master of the Arena and all the rest of the gang, so be sure to tune into that.
Right. And we asked for Cleric to join us next week because I mean, I was not even a part of the community when we went into the PS3 era, in Xbox 360. I'm sorry if I'm offending any of the Xbox 360 as well. You know what I mean? The current gen system. I was not there for the first 5 years of it. Your time had dwindled off going through it. Cleric, however, was fairly prominent through most of it. So, and was actually a prominent name in the community. So, we've asked him to come in and join us on that. And so we're coming from very different perspectives, which is what we wanted.
And also, in case you missed it or we hadn't noted it, today we were on PS3 side for the exhibition. If any of you got some major experiences from the Xbox side, EU, North America, hey, send it in. We want to hear about what you guys ran into today too. Different builds you saw, what you felt the meta was like. But I just want to give a big thanks to everybody that contributed today. Again, also a couple other players to note, the Relief with his Rathalos S. Yes, it was a quad with the Carousel props. Tierson cannot stand that weapon. War Angel, someone we met just over the night, with his sniping biped, the archer. We also had Schweppes, who introduced me to Monster Girl Encyclopedia. Thank you. And Fungus, W2, 427, and all the rest of the crew. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for contributing, and we hope to catch you online.
All right, just a couple more things.
Yeah.
Quick note on a couple things. We will be recording next Thursday so that the show will be out on a regular day on Fridays. This is a little different because, again, we wanted to catch the exhibition. So you can look for the show starting on Fridays. That's going to basically be the planned schedule for that. And again, I would like to thank everyone, again, who contributed. And definitely, if you had a drastically different experience than we did in today's events, you can email us. The link will be here in the YouTube channel. Email us there, or you can go to ArmoredCoresLegacy.com. We register for the forums, and we have a specific area over there that you can also post any of your comments. So post or email. Let's see. Besides that, there was something else I can't remember. So I think that'll do it.
I think you've covered the ground.
All right, sweet. So there we go. Again, this is our first time doing this, so that's what I wanted to touch on. If you have any comments about the show, if you had any comments about the show, just again remember our first time recording something like this. Comments, suggestions. If you just don't like the sound of my voice, well, I don't really care, but you'll tell me about it. But yeah, give us feedback. We want feedback. If we can improve things, we definitely want to. This is something that we want to do. That we want to give a voice to the community outside of what we already have, hence the name of the show. All right, that's it. That's it for me then. So, great. First one's done.
One last shout out to From Chang for all the recording he did today. And remember, RavensVoiceACL at gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Signing out. Catch you guys next week.
Yep, have a good one.